Chapter 371 Icy Heart Poison. Chapter 371 Icy Heart Poison. I once tried to cure you with icy heart force when you were chased by Tan Feng and mortally wounded. However, as soon as the icy heart force entered your body, it was devoured by a more powerful force. Leng Rushuang looked at Jian Wushuang and said. Jian Wushuang stared at her. Surely it was because of heavenly creation skill. At that point, I realized that your cultivation method was extraordinary. Leng Rushuang said coldly, since it can devour icy heart force, I suspect that it may also work on the icy heart poison that is formed by the icy heart force. You mean, you want me to drive the icy heart poison out of your body? Jian Wushuang frowned. Yes. Leng Rushuang nodded. The idea occurred to me when I realized you have an extraordinary cultivation method, but you were not strong enough at the time. Now that you have reached the Saint Realm, I think you can do it. What should I do? Jian Wushuang asked. Instead of answering him, Leng Rushuang extended her hand and rolled up her sleeve, showing him her white arm. There was a piece of milky white skin near her shoulder. The ghostly skin was a hideous white, just like a bone. Leng Rushuang raised her head and looked at Jian Wushuang. You just need to use your cultivation method and force it out my arm. That's it. Jian Wushuang was surprised. Of course not, Leng Rushuang said. Icy heart poison is the strongest poison known to man. An ordinary person will die if they even touch it, but you need to absorb it into your own body and then refine it, which means my icy heart poison will be transferred to you. Your cultivation method is strange. It easily devoured my icy heart force, so it should be able to refine the icy heart poison as well. However, this is just a guess, so I'm not sure. Once you begin, if you can't refine the icy heart poison, you will die. Jian Wushuang was astounded. He had just asked if it was simple, but now he realized it wasn't simple at all. He was walking the path to hell. If he was even slightly careless, or if he couldn't refine the icy heart poison, the only thing awaiting him was death. With that said, you should take this time and carefully think about whether you're willing to try. If you don't want to help me, I will not force you, Leng Rushuang said. I don't need to think about it, I'll do it. Jian Wushuang didn't hesitate. Are you sure? Leng Rushuang looked at Jian Wushuang in surprise. It was dangerous and no one knew what would happen. Anyone else would have taken time to think about it, but he didn't even frown. I'm sure, Jian Wushuang said with a laugh. He was confident because of his cultivation method. The heavenly creation skill had never disappointed him. Moreover, he owes Leng Rushuang a favor. Let's start. Jian Wushuang urged. Leng Rushuang took a deep look at Jian Wushuang and nodded. Jian Wushuang immediately began to circulate the heavenly creation skill. Spiritual power gathered in his palm and then spread out to cover the ghostly white skin on Leng Rushuang's arm. The instant his spiritual power came into contact with her skin, Jian Wushuang felt a white energy wiggling around like billions of worms. This white energy was the icy heart poison. What a frightening poison. Seeing the white energy, Jian Wushuang couldn't help feeling terrified. He had some minor experience with poison in the past, but compared with the icy heart poison, they were insignificant. The terrifying, ice-cold white energy in Leng Rushuang's arm was slowly spreading. Jian Wushuang believed that even a little bit of this white energy could easily freeze a Saint Realm expert and turn them into powder. It was just a tiny portion of the icy heart poison. Most of it had been sealed by Leng Rushuang. Be careful, reminded Leng Rushuang. It made Jian Wushuang feel strange. He thought of Leng Rushuang as someone who was always cold as ice. But today, perhaps because he was willing to help her, Leng Rushuang was treating him much better. Jian Wushuang took a deep breath, then concentrated on the white energy. He began circulating his spiritual power according to the heavenly creation skill, while slowly moving towards the white energy. As soon as they made contact with each other, it was like his spiritual power took a bite of the white energy and swallowed it. It was only a small portion, about the size of a fingernail. However, when it entered Jian Wushuang's body, he immediately felt as if his body was frozen. For a moment, even his breathing and his heartbeat stopped. Refine. Hurry, refine it. Jian Wushuang quickly circulated the heavenly creation skill and a surge of spiritual power rushed towards the icy heart poison. Fortunately, the heavenly creation skill did not let him down. The icy heart poison was tyrannical, but the heavenly creation skill was even more domineering. Although the icy heart poison in his body fought back violently, it was quickly suppressed before eventually being refined. Did it work? Lung Rushuang stared at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang opened his eyes and winked at Lung Rushuang as a smile spreading across his face. A moment later, Jian Wushuang carefully extended his hand. There was a drop of ghostly white liquid floating in his palm. This was the refined icy heart poison. Jian Wushuang flipped over his other hand and took out a jade bottle, then dropped white liquid into the bottle. However, as soon as it entered the bottle, bang! The jade bottle exploded. His mouth spasmed. That jade bottle was made of spiritual jade. Not only was it valuable, it was also the highest quality bottle he owned. However, it could not endure the terrifying coldness that radiated from the poison. Use this one. Lung Rushuang flipped her hand over and took out a transparent jade bottle, then handed it to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and accepted it. This time, when he dropped the white liquid into the jade bottle, nothing happened. Seeing that, a twinkle flashed in his eyes. A good bottle. Jian Wushuang broke into a smile. Chapter 372, Setting Off to Divine Land. Chapter 372, Setting Off to Divine Land. This was definitely something good. Since icy heart poison was virulent, the venom refined from it should be useful. Go on, said Lung Rushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded and then continued devouring and refining the icy heart poison from Lung Rushuang's arm. After gaining experience from the first time, the subsequent attempts were much easier. Half a day passed in the blink of an eye. 12 drops. After the last drop fell into the jade bottle, a smile broke out on Jian Wushuang's face. The last of the icy heart poison in Lung Rushuang's arm had finally been refined and her arm was getting much better as well. Thank you, said Lung Rushuang, as she pulled down her sleeve. Jian Wushuang shrugged and smiled, then said, I can only refine the icy heart poison that leaked out. There is nothing I can do about the poison that is sealed. I understand. Lung Rushuang nodded, then she flipped her hand over, took out a jade slip, and said, Take this. If you are in danger, break it and I will try my best to help you. Oh! Jian Wushuang was curious, but he didn't take it. The icy heart poison in my body is still leaking, so I might need to ask for your help again. I don't want you to die before then. Jian Wushuang smiled and took it. I'm leaving. Jian Wushuang didn't need to stay any longer. Since he had already refined Lung Rushuang's icy heart poison, he left the nature residence. After leaving, he went directly to the Tianzong dynasty. He would be leaving Nanyang continent to go to the Divine Land soon. Before that, he had a lot of things to do. In the imperial palace of the Tianzong dynasty, a black figure appeared in the air over the palace, surrounded by a transcendent aura. Are you Jian Wushuang? A mild voice was heard, then a red-robed man appeared. Following him was the monarch of Tianzong dynasty, Di Shi. Hong Shuzi. Jian Wushuang looked at him calmly. Jian Wushuang recognized him. He was the founding emperor of the Tianzong dynasty and the creator of the formless sword art. Di Shi. Jian Wushuang greeted him. Di Shi bowed slightly to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang destroyed Holy Emperor Palace on his own. It had spread throughout the Nanyang continent, with both Hong Shuzi and Di Shi hearing about it. The Jian Wushuang of today was no longer the callow boy of the past. Now, he was recognized as a powerful force on the Nanyang continent. Even it was them, they behaved gingerly while facing Jian Wushuang. Seniors, I have come today to ask for a favor. Would you be willing to take care of Sword Marquis Mansion for me? Jian Wushuang asked directly. Take care of Sword Marquis Mansion? Hong Shuzi realized, you're going to the Divine Land, aren't you? Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded, then he reached out and handed him an interspatial ring. The assets in the ring are for you. Hong Shuzi took it and said, smilingly, rest assured, the Tianzong dynasty will protect Sword Marquis Mansion. Thank you. If something happens that you can't handle, please send a message to the young master of the alchemy school, Wang Yuan, Jian Wushuang said. After saying that, Jian Wushuang left. Next, he went to Dragon Palace. Dragon Palace was the same as before. To Jian Wushuang's huge relief, Palace Master White, who left Dragon Palace to help him deal with Bloodfeather Tower, went back to Dragon Palace and took back her Palace Master position again after Bloodfeather Tower was destroyed. Dragon Palace was still the holy place for cultivators in Tianzong Dynasty. In a branch of the Gladiator Arena, in Tiannan Province, a white-robed, middle-aged man was reading a thread-bound book in a study room. He was one of the 2 men in charge of the branch of Gladiator Arena in Tiannan Province. Dung, dung. Someone knocked and then a golden-robed servant walked in. Lord Supervisor, someone sent you an interspatial ring. The golden-robed servant respectfully gave it to him. Oh! The white-robed gentleman raised his eyebrows and took the ring, but his eyes opened widely after glancing at the contents. It's a purple fire body-shaping elixir. The middle-aged man was shocked. He subconsciously touched his armless sleeve. This purple fire body-shaping elixir could reform his missing arm. Was it him? The middle-aged gentleman raised his head, showing his handsome face with a smile on his mouth. The gentleman was someone who had once helped Jian Wushuang immensely, Bai Chong. He lost an arm while holding back the assassins from Bloodfeather Tower for Jian Wushuang. Now, Jian Wushuang had repaid his kindness with a purple fire body-shaping elixir and some highly sought-after treasures for people in the Yin-Yang Void Realm. Jian Wushuang's next stop was Sword Marquis Mansion. It was in midnight and the Sword Marquis Mansion was quiet. Jian Wushuang wandered through the mansion alone, looking at the familiar surroundings. He saw the Sword Pavilion, where he once lived. He wandered around all night, alone and unnoticed, until the next morning. When the sun finally began to rise, he departed. Inside the alchemy school, Jian Wushuang, Wang Yuan and Yang Zixuan had gathered together. "Ha, third bro, today we won't stop drinking until we're drunk," Wang Yuan said and laughed. "Good luck. I will go there and look for you soon." Yang Zixuan looked at Jian Wushuang. "Okay. Cheers." Jian Wushuang raised his glass. The 3 brothers continued to drink for 1 whole day and night. 2 days later, all the arrangements had finally been completed. At the very edge of the Nanyang continent, near the Endless Sea. Now that Sword Marquis Mansion is in order, I have nothing left to worry about. So, standing at the shore, Jian Wushuang looked out at the Endless Sea in front of him. The Divine Land. It lies at the very center of this sea. The land of experts. At its peak, the bloodline of Sword Ancestor was an overlord of the Divine Land. Father also went to the Divine Land. Jian Wushuang's eyes were full of excitement and expectation. Without any hesitation, he flew directly towards the Endless Sea. Chapter 373, Juku Waters. Chapter 373, Juku Waters. Divine Land, located at the center of the world, known as the Land of Experts. It's much more vast than the Nanyang continent, with many more experts as well. But, life here is even harder than in Nanyang. The clear sky was as pure as a porcelain plate. However, under such a clear sky, a fierce fight was taking place on a piece of land near the boundless sea. Lei Yun, take Miss Lana and escape. We'll hold them off. Run, now. A desperate roar resounded through the air. On the side the roar came from, there were 4 guards and a cyan-dressed lady, who was somewhat pretty. She seemed to possess a bit of a heroic spirit as she tightly gripped her aquamarine longsword. On the other side was a group of black-robed men, all wearing black masks. From the looks of it, there were dozens of them, all with a strong aura. Especially the leader, who was a half-saint. At this moment, 3 of the guards swallowed an elixir that could temporarily double their strength at the cost of their lives, attempting to hold off all the black-robed men. But, unfortunately, some of their enemies managed to break through and chase after the lady and the guard. You won't be able to escape. The killing intent of the half-saint leading them continued to surge forward. The lady and the guard, a burly middle-aged man with purple hair, had a grave look on their faces as they tried to escape. Damn. We're just out on an ordinary trip. Why are we being targeted? We didn't do anything to draw attention, did we? Who are these black-robed men, and who sent them? the purple-haired man roared, with a twisted expression on his face. As for the lady, though she looked pale, she managed to stay calm. Few in my family knew my whereabouts. Among those who were informed about this trip, the only one that might try to kill me is her, the lady said in a cold tone. Miss, you believe she ordered these men to kill us? The purple-haired man asked with a stunned look on his face. She is the only one who desperately wants me dead, said the lady. Damn. The purple-haired man was livid and clenched his fists. We're still far from our residence and we're slower than these guys, so we'll probably be killed before we make it back. There's no way we will survive if we keep rushing towards home, the lady pondered while glancing around. Finally, her eyes fell on the sea in the distance. Right now, there is only one way can save ourselves, the lady said with a glint of frenzy in her eyes. Uncle Lei, follow me. Having said that, the lady headed towards the sea. Miss, what do you? The purple-haired man was confused, but he quickly understood her intent. He gritted his teeth and followed her. They quickly appeared above the sea and continued rushing forward. Ahead of them, as far as they could see, was a sky covered with dark clouds, being lit up by thunder and lightning. Is that place Juku Waters? The half-saint among the black-robed men that were chasing them narrowed his eyes sharply. In this world, there were many dangerous places formed by nature. Juku Waters was one of such places in the Divine Land. But it was more like a prison than a region, as the vast Divine Land was encased by it. Any expert that wanted to leave or enter the Divine Land had to pass through Juku Waters first. However, not everyone could make it through. The Juku Waters was so dangerous that normally, an expert below the Saint Realm had no chance to break through it. They are escaping to the Juku Waters. The black-robed men's expressions all changed. The Juku Waters was a forbidden area to them since they were only in the Yang Void Realm. If they entered the region, they would almost definitely die. With no chance of surviving the chase, the lady and the purple-haired man chose to test their luck in the Juku Waters. It was the best choice they could make right now. After them. Don't let them enter the waters. The half-saint ordered grimly, coldness shining in his eyes as he began moving faster. Yet, before the lady and the purple-haired man could enter the waters, something strange suddenly happened. The clouds that covered the Juku Waters began to separate at an amazing speed. The whole region seemed like it was being split from the center, along with the disappearance of the clouds and lighting. Where the clouds had parted, an unblocked path led directly to a black figure who was drawing closer slowly. This. The lady and the black-robed men were all startled. This man walked out of the waters. One black-robed man shouted. The Juku Waters are full of danger, but he safely broke through it by simply splitting the clouds. He's at least in the Saint Realm. This is the Divine Land. Jian Wushuang, the black-dressed figure carrying a long sword on his back, exited the Juku Waters. Starting from the Nanyang continent, he had crossed 3 continents and finally arrived at the Divine Land. It had taken him a year and 3 months. Standing up in the air, Jian Wushuang looked around, gaining a sense of the surroundings. The spiritual qi here is so pure. That was his first impression of the Divine Land. The spiritual power in the Divine Land was 10 times richer than the Nanyang continent. This land was indeed the core of the world. No wonder it was home to so many top experts. The resources here were incomparable to that of the Nanyang continent. In the next instant, Jian Wushuang noticed the lady and the others standing in front of him. People of the Divine Land? Looking at them, Jian Wushuang smirked. Chapter 374, The Lin Family of the Iron Saber Territory. Chapter 374, The Lin Family of the Iron Saber Territory. When Jian Wushuang looked at the lady and the others, they stared back at him. This man parted the clouds and made his way here. He must be an expert of the Saint Realm, probably a newcomer from outside of the continent. If he was willing to help, there would be no need for me to risk going into the waters. An idea quickly crossed the lady's mind. She stepped forward and said to Jian Wushuang, "I'm Lin Lan from the Lin family. Please help me and we shall be greatly appreciative." Her words dazed the black-robed men, and they immediately looked toward Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang frowned. His rich experience told him that the lady and the man with her were being chased. They currently had no other way to save themselves besides asking him for help. The Lin family? Jian Wushuang showed a pondering smile. Since I just arrived in this land, I will need a place to stay. Perhaps the Lin family would be a good choice. Having made up his mind, Jian Wushuang cast a cold look towards the black-robed men. Do you guys want to leave on your own, or do you want me to make you leave? Jian Wushuang said indifferently to them. Under the masks, the black-robed men's faces became gloomy. Sir, you have nothing to do with our matters. You don't necessarily have to get yourself involved. The half-saint who was leading them frowned and said. Yes, you're right. But, I simply don't like you, Jian Wushuang said directly. What he said was true. He felt disgusted by what those men were wearing. Their black robes and masks reminded him of Bloodfeather Tower. They were dressed exactly the same as the assassins from Bloodfeather Tower. Sir, the leader tried to say something else. However, Jian Wushuang stopped him, then lifted 3 fingers and said, I'll count to 3, leave before then or stay here forever. 1. Jian Wushuang's emotionless voice reverberated through the air. All the black-robed men were filled with rage and despair. Although they had the advantage in numbers, they still might die with a single stroke from the man standing in front of them. He had walked out of the Juku waters and was above the Saint Realm, whereas they were only at the peak of the Yang Void Realm. 2. Jian Wushuang continued. Let's go. The leading black-robed man ordered. No matter how reluctant they were, they had to leave. Thanks for your help, sir. I'll remember this. May I have your name? The lady asked after black-robed men left. Swordsman, said Jian Wushuang, still choosing to use this pseudonym. Swordsman? Lin Lan smiled and continued, if I'm not mistaken, you're from outside of the continent, and it's your first time visiting the Divine Land. You're right. Jian Wushuang nodded. The Divine Land is vast yet dangerous. Since it's your first visit, I guess you don't have a place to stay yet. If you don't mind, you can follow me to my family. Though it's not big, it still holds a place in Iron Saber territory, and you'll be our distinguished guest there. What do you say? Lin Lan asked. Oh. Jian Wushuang blinked. Her idea appealed to him. He was a newcomer in the Divine Land, and what he needed was exactly that, a place to stay while he found his footing so he could make future plans. Jian Wushuang took her advice, following her and Lei Yun to their home. As soon as they arrived, a lot of people from the Lin family came out to meet them, with a slender elder leading them. Catching sight of the elder, Jian Wushuang was a bit surprised. A Saint Realm expert? The elder came up to the gate, but when he saw Lin Lan a strange expression appeared on his face, followed by a gentle smile, then he said, Miss, you're back. Uncle Zong, Lin Lan replied to him with a cold look. Why is it only you and Lei Yun? Where are Lei Hao and the others? The slender elder Lin Zong asked in confusion. Lin Lan's expression changed a bit. We encountered an attack during our trip. They were killed by the attackers while protecting Miss, Lei Yun said in a low voice. What? Lin Zong appeared surprised and then angrily growled, Who the hell attacked you? How dare they? Uncle Zong, do you really have no idea who those guys were? Lin Lan glanced at Lin Zong and asked coldly. How could I know that? Lin Zong answered while shaking his head, then he smiled gently and continued, Luckily, you made it back safely, even though Lei Hao and the other 2 were not as lucky. After saying this, he headed inside the house. Following behind Lin Lan, Jian Wushuang sensed something fishy about the discussion, but he kept silent. Well, this friend is. Lin Zong looked toward Jian Wushuang. He is swordsman, Lin Lan replied. Without him, I wouldn't have survived the attack. Swordsman? Never heard of him. Lin Zong raised his eyebrows. Of course, you couldn't have heard of him since he just arrived here from outside of the continent, Lin Lan explained. Oh, I see. Lin Zong smiled silently, then said, Since you've saved our miss, sir, come on in with me. Thanks, Jian Wushuang said and nodded, but snorted inwardly. A moment earlier, when Lin Zong stared at him, Jian Wushuang caught a gloomy glint in his eyes. From this, Jian Wushuang could tell that Lin Zong must have had something to do with the attack. The moment Jian Wushuang stepped into the mansion, he sensed the obscure aura of 7 experts in the Saint Realm. Plus Lin Zong, there was a total 8 Saint Realm experts in the Lin family. The Divine Land is indeed a place of experts. Even in an ordinary family, there are so many Saint Realm experts. Jian Wushuang gasped inwardly in admiration. Experts of the Saint Realm were rare in the Nanyang continent, they were also the strongest. But, in Divine Land, they were nothing special. The first family Jian Wushuang met had 8 of them, no less than the number in a top sect from Nanyang. Jian Wushuang followed Lei Yun to a yard. "Mr. Swordsman, Miss Lana told me to give you this. She thought you might need it." Lei Yun gave Jian Wushuang an interspatial ring. "Thanks." Jian Wushuang accepted the ring and began to read the information contained in it about the Divine Land. Chapter 375, 9 Realms and 81 Domains. Chapter 375, 9 Realms and 81 Domains. It took Jian Wushuang half a day to read all the information, and he could not help gasping in admiration. The Divine Land really is great. Nanyang continent is no match for it. The vast Divine Land was full of experts in the Yin-Yang Void Realm, with a good amount of experts in the Saint Realm. Moreover, the division of the two places was totally different. In the Nanyang continent, there were sects and dynasties, together they constituted the continent. However, the Divine Land had neither of those. Instead, it had factions led by top experts and families of different sizes. The Lin family, where Jian Wushuang was currently staying, was a medium-sized family in the Iron Saber territory. The territory was large, and Jian Wushuang reckoned that it was as vast as the whole Nanyang continent. In this territory, there were 6 large families, dozens of medium-sized families, and countless small families. In Jian Wushuang's mind, there had to be many more Saint Realm experts in the 6 large families than in a medium-sized family like the Lin family, that already possessed 8 such experts. Besides that, there was also a Supreme Lord, who could command everyone in the territory, even the 6 large families, and was said to be an expert above the peak of the Saint Realm. In the Divine Land, one territory is as insignificant as a small empire in Nanyang continent, but its lord is an expert above the Saint Realm. How amazing! Jian Wushuang praised it. It was clearly written in what he read, the vast Divine Land was filled with countless territories like the Iron Saber territory. In his eyes, even one territory in the Divine Land was as large as the whole Nanyang continent. Therefore, the scale of the Divine Land was countless times larger than the Nanyang continent. Too vast. The Divine Land is too damn vast. Jian Wushuang couldn't suppress his shock. In the Divine Land, territory was indeed the smallest scale. Above that was the domain, and above the domain was the realm. In total, there were 9 realms and 81 domains. All the domains and realms were under the top expert's control, and those people were addressed as the 9 sovereigns and the 81 marquis. Each king controlled one realm. Each marquis controlled one domain, that contained dozens and even hundreds of territories. In addition to the 9 sovereigns and 81 marquis, the Divine Land was also home to 3 supreme experts, known as the 3 ancestors. Individually, they were known as the Holy Ancestor, the Spirit Ancestor, and the Stone Ancestor. The 3 were regarded as people of supremacy, and their factions made up the 3 hegemons. 3 ancestors. While reading through the information on the ancestors, a complex feeling filled Jian Wushuang. He was a descendant of the Sword Ancestor's bloodline. At his peak, the Sword Ancestor was on an equal footing with the 3 ancestors. His bloodline was once an overlord in the Divine Land, but after his death, due to an unknown reason, his bloodline lost its strongest support and was eliminated by another overlord. The other overlord was among the 3 ancestors, who are now the 3 ancestors who stand at the top in the Divine Land. Zhu Xiu was right. Jian Wushuang looked serious. I was the strongest person in the Nanyang continent. But in the Divine Land, I'm nothing. Knowing that even the lord of a territory was above the Saint Realm, he couldn't imagine how strong the 9 sovereigns and 81 marquis were. Also, how strong are the 3 ancestors? Looks like my cultivation still has a long way to go. Jian Wushuang smiled faintly but was not discouraged. No one was born to be an expert. Only difficulties and hardships could create a strong person. As Jian Wushuang continued studying the information, he heard a boom. An energy wave suddenly rose from the direction of the mansion, causing a stir in the Lin family. Lei Yun, standing by Jian Wushuang, was surprised when he felt the energy fluctuation. What's wrong? Jian Wushuang looked in the direction of the boom. It's Miss Lana trying to break through again. Lei Yun looked terrible. Jian Wushuang gave him a curious expression. Isn't a breakthrough considered a good thing? Even if she fails, she can gain more experience for the next breakthrough. It does no harm at all. Mr. Swordsman, you may not know this, but Miss Lana is different from others. A breakthrough is a good thing to others but a disaster to her, Lei Yun explained. A disaster? Jian Wushuang was astonished. I'll tell you later. I have to find Miss Lana first. After saying this, Lei Yun rushed towards the energy wave. Jian Wushuang stood up, but his expression was weird. A breakthrough a good chance to others but a disaster to her? I'd like to see what kind of disaster it could be. He immediately flew towards the energy wave, filled with curiosity. When he arrived above Lin Lan's yard, the energy wave had already subsided. Besides Lei Yun and him, there were also many experts and disciples of the Lin family watching as well. They stared at Lin Lan with a pitying look. Jian Wushuang looked toward Lin Lan as well, but when he saw her terrible state, he was shocked. He noticed that her aura was weakening. Yes, it was weakening. She failed the breakthrough. But, even worse than that, her aura started weakening, and her realm was regressing. When he first met her at Juku Waters, she was in the initial Yang Void realm, but due to her unsuccessful breakthrough this time, she fell back to the peak of the Yin Void realm, then the exceptional Yin Void realm, before finally stopping in the profound Yin Void realm. It was not until this moment that her breathing calmed down. An unsuccessful breakthrough results in a falling back 3 levels. Jian Wushuang was really horrified. He had never heard or seen such a thing. Unbelievable. Chapter 376, The Fallen Genius. Chapter 376, The Fallen Genius. In the air above the yard, many members of the Lin family were watching and gasping as Lin Lan fell to the profound Yin Void realm from the initial Yang Void realm. Sure enough, Miss Lana is weaker than before. Even worse, she fell back 3 levels this time. TSK, she might be the only in the whole divine land who becomes much weaker because of a breakthrough. Who would have thought that the most peerless genius of the Lin family to appear in 100 years would fall into such a miserable situation in only short 2 years? I heard that Master has decided to marry her to Luo Hai, the great elder's son. Luo Hai? That notorious playboy? The same discussion about the girl could be heard from every direction. Standing in the air, Jian Wushuang and Lei Yun didn't miss any single word of those undisguised comments. Lei Yun looked grave and quivered. He seemed to be controlling his anger. As for Jian Wushuang, he wore an odd expression while listening to the comments. In the yard, Lin Lan's breath slowly settled down. However, she was trembling, her face twisted, and her eyes said that she wouldn't take her defeat lying down. She wanted to howl and lash out, but she finally suppressed the desire. Gnashing her teeth, she headed to her room with her head down. Let's go back too. The people up in the air sighed and left. Soon, only Jian Wushuang and Lei Yun still remained. Lei Yun, what's wrong with your miss? Jian Wushuang frowned and asked. He had never heard of someone falling back 3 levels after an unsuccessful breakthrough. Lei Yun showed a complex expression and sighed after a long while. It's a long story. I'm not in a hurry. Let's get down first, Jian Wushuang said. He was really curious about it. After they returned to Jian Wushuang's yard and took seats by a stone table, face to face, Lei Yun started to tell the story. Mr. Swordsman, you might not know, but Miss Lana was the #1 genius in our family 2 years ago. The #1 genius? Jian Wushuang was dazed. How could the #1 genius end up like this? Miss Lana was extremely gifted. She started cultivating at 6 and condensed her primordial gold core at 10. At 14, she reached the Yin-Yang Void realm, Lei Yun continued. Upon hearing this, Jen Wushuang was even more dazed. She started cultivating at 6, condensed her primordial gold core at 10, and reached the yin-yang void realm at 14? Is she really a human? In a small empire of the Nanyang continent, condensing a primordial gold core at 20 made someone an absolute genius. Reaching the yin-yang void realm by 30 was considered an achievement that only top geniuses were capable of. Like Jen Wushuang himself, he was recognized as a top genius, but even he condensed his primordial gold core at 17. In respect to this, he could not hold a candle to Lin Lan. Condensing a primordial gold core at 10 was an impossible thing in the Nanyang continent. Richly endowed by nature, the Divine Land provides much better resources to warriors than the Nanyang continent, where kids start cultivating at 12. However, in the Divine Land, they start cultivating at a much younger age, some even as early as 6. Jen Wushuang sighed inwardly. The difference between the two lands was like heaven and earth. After reaching the yin-yang void realm at 14, Miss Lana continued making progress at an amazing speed. When she was 18, she reached the peak of the Yang Void realm and was only a step away from the Saint realm, Lei Yun added. At that time, she was the most talented person in our family, as well as the whole Iron Saber territory. She was respected by everyone and was an example to the youngsters. But everything changed when she was 18. That year, she suffered an attack from a black-robed man in the Saint realm while she was outside tempering herself. The man was stronger, so she was no match for him. He caught her, but not to kill her. Instead, he poisoned her with some kind of witch poison. Witch poison? Jen Wushuang was curious. Yes, a very special kind of witch poison. It took root in her body and only attacks when she tries to break through a bottleneck. As a result, she always fails to break through and her cultivation even regresses. Lei Yun's voice became low. It has been 2 years since she was poisoned. During this period of time, she has tried to break through 3 times. In her first attempt, she tried to reach the Saint realm from the peak of the Yang Void realm, but she failed and fell back 1 level, to the exceptional Yang Void realm. In the second attempt, 1 year ago, she struggled to return to the peak of the Yang Void realm, but still failed. That time, she fell behind 2 levels, back to the initial Yang Void realm. Today, she made her 3rd attempt. But just as you saw, she fell back 3 levels. During these 2 years, falling from the peak of the Yang Void realm to the profound Yin Void realm, Miss Lana has experienced falling from the highest point in her life to the lowest. Hearing those words, Jen Wushuang couldn't help but be moved. How could the number 1 genius of the Lin family become what she is now just because of a witch poison? Can't she get rid of that poison? Jen Wushuang asked. It's quite difficult. Lei Yun shook his head and continued. After she was initially poisoned, she was still a peerless genius in our family and was highly favored. We asked several experts and alchemists for help, at a high cost, in an attempt to clear the poison from her body. But it didn't work out. We even managed to have her treated by an expert at the pinnacle of the Saint realm. But there was still nothing the expert could do. Oh! Jen Wushuang raised his eyebrows. In fact, if Miss Lana hadn't tried to make a breakthrough, the poison wouldn't have been activated. In such a case, though she might not enhance her strength, she could avoid a regressing. Alas, she was too stubborn. Lei Yun let out a sigh. She was not reconciled to be stuck at the peak of the Yang Void realm. Therefore, although she knew that her cultivation might regress if she tried to break through, she never gave up trying. She took every chance she had during the past 2 years, and she tried 3 times. Even now, she is still persistent. Chapter 377, Let's Compete. Chapter 377, Let's Compete. After hearing this, Jen Wushuang couldn't help sighing. A peerless genius, with unlimited potential, could not improve her strength, and even became weaker, just because of this witch poison. No matter who it was, they would not accept this destiny. 2 years ago, when Miss Lana was still the top genius, the Lin family regarded her as a treasure. But in the past 2 years, her position in the family has become lower and lower. Even the master slowly became indifferent to her. Not long ago, in order to make a connection with the Luo family, the Lin family even decided to marry Miss Lana to Luo Hai, Lei Yun continued. That Luo Hai, however, is a famous playboy, who acts in a tyrannical manner by virtue of his father's position as the great elder of the Luo family. He is notorious in the entire Iron Saber territory, and I've heard that he already has 3 wives and 9 concubines. It will really be a tragedy if Miss Lana has to marry him. Your lady, even if her strength has regressed, is still your lord's daughter. Is your lord willing to marry her to Luo Hai? Jian Wushuang asked in surprise. Why wouldn't he be willing? Lei Yuan shook his head and smiled bitterly. Our master cultivates throughout the year. Most family affairs are decided by the first madam, who is not Miss Lana's natural mother, so she treats her badly. Lin Yu, the other lady in the Lin family, who is the first madam's natural daughter, has always regarded Miss Lana as a thorn in her side. That pair of mother and daughter are eager to see Miss Lana die. Miss Lana was hunted last time, probably because this pair ordered it. 2 years ago, Miss Lana fell victim to the witch poison by a black-robed man. I'm afraid it also had something to do with the mother and daughter. When Lei Yun said this, his face became extremely cold. Hearing this, Jian Wushuang was shocked. It's no wonder that when I first entered the Lin family, there was something wrong with Lin Zong's expression. It seems that Lin Zong belongs to the first madam's side, doesn't he? Jian Wushuang asked. Yes, that Lin Zong has followed the lead of the first madam for a long time, said Lei Yun, with a heavy nod. Anyway, they belong to the same family, and they are even half-sisters. How could she acted so cruelly? Jian Wushuang asked and sighed. Jealousy. Lei Yun looked up and said, Miss Lana is very talented, so she is seen as the real phoenix among the people. Although Lin Yu has good talent, she is inferior to Miss Lana. Since childhood, Lin Yu has been consistently crushed by Miss Lana in all aspects. Naturally, she became very jealous. Really? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. In 3 days, there will be a hunt within the family, after which the master should formally announce Miss Lana's marriage, said Lei Yun. After hearing Lei Yun's story, Jian Wushuang also secretly felt sorry. Jian Wushuang's expression turned odd. Witch poison. My heavenly creation skill is incredible. It was able to swallow and refine Lung Rushuang's icy heart poison, which can be called the strongest poison known to man. As for the witch poison, could I refine it as well? The night was as black as ink. Inside the huge courtyard, Lin Lan, dressed in a blue robe, was practicing her swordsmanship alone, with a long sword in her hand. Following the path of her long sword, one bright sword light after another flew out into the dark night. These sword lights were extremely fast and unusually powerful. Up above the courtyard stood Jian Wushuang, with a long sword on his back, quietly watching Lin Lan, yet the other did not notice his existence at all. Watching Lin Lan practice her swordsmanship over and over again, Jian Wushuang could feel a sense of stubbornness forming between her eyebrows. She a lot like me, Jian Wushuang murmured softly. He lost himself while watching Lin Lan. He could see his past self in Lin Lan. Many years ago, when he was even younger, he suffered humiliation due to his inability to condense spiritual power in the Marquis mansion. At that time, he was just like Lin Lan. He refused to be belittled or give up. He desperately wanted to condense spiritual power. For this goal, he put in countless times more effort than ordinary people. Finally, he succeeded. Lin Lan's experience was similar to his, yet it was even more miserable and desperate, but she also refused to give up. She's a good girl. Her talent in sword principle is also very good. Jian Wushuang secretly nodded, and then the corners of his mouth slightly warped. Inside the courtyard, Lin Lan was still practicing her swordsmanship, but at this moment a light voice came from her side, practicing alone here is a bit too boring. Hey! Lin Lan's face turned solemn. She stopped and looked at the source of the voice, where she immediately found Jian Wushuang. Mr. Swordsman. Lin Lan's expression became softer. Jian Wushuang smiled, then waved his hand. He took a branch from the tree beside him, pointed it at Lin Lan, and said, Your swordsmanship is not bad, how about competing with me? Compete with you? Lin Lan was stunned. Then she glanced at the branch in Jian Wushuang's hand, heavily nodded, and said, Then, please instruct me, Mr. Swordsman. Begin, Jen Wuxuang said indifferently. Chu. Lin Lan's body suddenly shot forward like a sharp arrow, followed by a thrilling howling sound, while a cold sword light stabbed towards Jen Wuxuang. At the same time, Lin Lan's spirit power reaching its pinnacle, causing the attack to become faster. Her swordsmanship is really good, and she has comprehended the origin. What's more, is it the world origin? Even though Jen Wuxuang was surprised, he slowly swung his branch. You lost. An indifferent voice was heard. Lin Lan was shocked and looked at the branch in front of her. It was pointing at her chest. This. Lin Lan's reaction speed was extremely fast, so she clearly remembered what happened just now. She had just attacked, but Jen Wuxuang easily sidestepped her attack. Then he just stepped forward, drawing closer to her, followed by a stabbing motion. A simple move, but it was too fast for Lin Lan to dodge. What was even more marvelous was that Jen Wuxuang didn't use any spiritual power, yet he still beat her easily. That sword move, Lin Lan recalled the sword move that Jen Wuxuang just displayed. A very ordinary and simple sword move, but it gave her the feeling that it contained the whole world. It was incomparably abstruse and far beyond her comprehension. Your understanding of sword principle is not weak either. In addition, your comprehension of world origin is very high. You could have definitely avoided my attack. Jen Wuxuang threw the branch aside and said lightly, unfortunately, you are too discomposed. It should either be because of the experiences over these last 2 years, or the fact that you will marry Luo Hai as soon as the family hunt ends in 3 days. But it has made your heart anxious. Mr. Swordsman knows about my past. Lin Lan looked at Jen Wuxuang. Lei Yun told me. Jen Wuxuang nodded. As for the witch poison, I might be able to resolve it. Chapter 378, Accepting a Disciple. Chapter 378, Accepting a Disciple. What? Lin Lan looked at Jen Wuxuang in a surprise. I only said it was possible, but I am not sure, Jen Wuxuang said. He had confidence in the heavenly creation skill, but there were exceptions in everything, so he was not sure. Lin Lan took a deep breath, then she looked at Jen Wuxuang again. Plop. Lin Lan was kneeling directly in front of Jen Wuxuang. I beg you, Mr. Swordsman, please remove the witch poison. I, Lin Lan, am willing to be your follower for the rest of my life, Lin Lan said in a serious manner. Follower? Jen Wuxuang was stunned. He knew what being a follower meant. It was equivalent to master and servant. In the vast divine land, some top experts occasionally had 1 or 2 followers around them. Lin Lan, in order to get rid of the witch poison, was even willing to become Jen Wuxuang's follower. It could be imagined how much the witch poison had tortured her. Forget about being my follower. Jen Wuxuang shook his head and continued, from the time I started practicing swordsmanship, until now, I have never had a disciple. If you are willing, you can become my first personal disciple starting today. Personal disciple? Lin Lan immediately became pleased by hearing this. Then, she respectfully kowtowed to Jen Wuxuang. Peng, peng, peng. Having kowtowed consecutively 3 times, Lin Lan got up and said, Disciple Lin Lan pays her respects to master. Jen Wuxuang could not help but smile. He had been alone since the beginning of his cultivation. Now, he finally had a disciple. Moreover, Jen Wuxuang was very fond of this disciple. It was not only because Lin Lan was very much like him and had similar experiences as him. The most important part was Lin Lan's temperament. I'd rather die than surrender. In addition, Lin Lan had excellent talent in both cultivation and sword principle. Moreover, the origin she comprehended was the world origin. He was satisfied with Lin Lan in all aspects. Naturally, he could accept her as a disciple. Get up. Jen Wuxuang waved his hand. Yes. Lin Lan got up, with a very humble attitude. Lin Lan also felt quite blessed to be Jen Wuxuang's personal disciple. Although she did not know how powerful Jen Wuxuang's strength was, she had just competed with him and he had defeated her in a single strike, without using any spiritual power. This level of ability alone was enough to make Lin Lan completely admire him. Jen Wuxuang sat down on the rock bench beside him, while Lin Lan also sat in front of him and stretched out her arms. Jian Wushuang held out his hands and placed them on Lin Lan's wrists. A stream of spiritual power entered Lin Lan's body through the pores on her wrists and began exploring her body. It only took a moment for him to find the witch poison that was hidden in Lin Lan's body. Oh my God! He was looking at the dark black witch poison that was hiding in Lin Lan's lower abdomen, which had a parasitic relationship with her dantian. Jian Wushuang could not help admiring it. It's like a parasite that feeds on the spiritual power within her dantian, and it can be said that it has integrated with her dantian. It is impossible to completely dispel the witch poison unless breaking her dantian. It's no wonder so many experts and alchemists could do nothing about this witch poison. Master, is there a way? Lin Lan was nervously looking at Jian Wushuang, with some expectation. Be patient, Jian Wushuang said while smiling slightly. Don't resist, Jian Wushuang ordered. Then a steady stream of spiritual power directly poured from Jian Wushuang's hands into Lin Lan's body and gathered at her dantian. Once it had accumulated to a certain level, the spiritual power immediately headed towards the dark black witch poison. The witch poison could not be separated from Lin Lan's dantian, nor could it be forcibly removed. Therefore, Jian Wushuang's only choice was to try to refine it while it was still in Lin Lan's body. However, the refinement went much smoother than that of the icy heart poison. Although the witch poison's parasitic method is a somewhat special, its toxicity is vastly inferior to Lung Wushuang's icy heart poison. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. In only a moment, most of the witch poison in Lin Lan's dantian had been refined by him. Half an hour later, the witch poison had been completely refined by him, at which point he suddenly stopped wielding his spiritual power. Puff! Lin Lan directly spat out a mouthful of black blood, which was all that remained after the witch poison had been refined. Your witch poison is gone, Jian Wushuang said in a cool way. Hearing this, Lin Lan was stunned for a moment. Here, this is an elixir that is originally used to restore strength. Take it and try circulating your spiritual power. Jian Wushuang passed Lin Lan a brown elixir. Without any doubts, Lin Lan accepted the brown elixir and immediately took it, then she sat down beside him. A moment later, a great aura of spiritual power began to spread from Lin Lan's body, increasing at an amazing speed. Lin Lan's cultivation, which had fallen to the level of the profound Yin Void realm today, had begun to improve. From the profound Yin Void realm, to the exceptional Yin Void realm, then the peak of the Yin Void realm, after which she started trying to enter the initial Yang Void realm. 2 hours later, Lin Lan's breath slowly calmed down. At this moment, her spiritual power had recovered to the profound Yang Void realm. She was now one level higher than she was earlier today when her cultivation began to regress. Sure enough, my witch poison has been completely removed. Lin Lan opened her eyes, which now contained a flash of ecstasy. Lin Lan looked at Jian Wushuang, then she knelt on the ground once again and solemnly said, Thank you for giving me this second chance, Master. Get up. Jian Wushuang waved his hand. Lin Lan stood up, and her state of mind slowly regained its calm, but there was still a faint trace of joy in her eyes. Your cultivation had already reached the peak of the Yang Void realm before. It was only because of the witch poison that you regressed, so it should not be difficult to completely recover. Here are 3 pills that are useful for restoring your cultivation. For the next 3 days, you should swallow 1 pill every day. In 3 days, your strength should be completely restored, Jian Wushuang said. In the past, he had destroyed the Holy Emperor Palace and killed the 4 Holy Masters by himself. Hence, the countless treasures accumulated in the Holy Emperor Palace over the thousands of years had fallen into his hands, among which there were various elixirs and pills. The pills given to Lin Lan were all second grade and of great value. Thank you so much, Master. Lin Lan pleasantly accepted the pills. I heard that your Lin family will have a hunt in 3 days? Jian Wushuang asked casually. Yes, Lin Lan solemnly nodded and said, Our Lin family holds a hunt every year. Not long ago, the senior family members decided to marry me to Luo Hai of the Luo family. This matter should be announced at the hunt. Oh! Jian Wushuang lifted his eyebrows, then he stood up and walked slowly towards his courtyard. Lin Lan looked closely at Jian Wushuang's back. Only when Jian Wushuang was about to disappear completely from her sight, did a cold voice reach her ears. Just do whatever you want to do. Your master will take care of everything, even if the sky begins to fall. Hearing this, Lin Lan's eyes gleamed and she immediately clenched her fists. Chapter 379, The Lin Family's Hunt. Chapter 379, The Lin Family's Hunt. 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. Even though it was early in the morning, the entire Lin family was very busy. The annual hunt was a big day for the Lin family. Naturally, that day was very boisterous. Even the rarely seen master would be present today. A large number of Lin family disciples gathered in the martial arts practice field, while the top senior experts of the Lin family sat in the front section of the grandstand. Although Jian Wushuang was not a member of the Lin family, he still had a seat in the grandstand because he had entered the Saint realm. Among the disciples, Lin Lan's eyes were cold and clear. She stood there, carrying a long sword on her back, like an iceberg. Many of the Lin family disciples in the area were looking at her strangely. I heard that this Lin Lan's cultivation level fell again 3 days ago, back to the profound Yin Void realm. How dare she still take part in the family hunt? If I were her, I would just stay at home and wait to marry Luo Hai. She is a genius with a proud heart. Genius? That was many years ago. Many disciples of the Lin family were whispering to each other. Although their voices were low, Lin Lan could still hear them. Lin Lan's had an indifferent expression on her face as she turned a blind eye to these disciples. Hey, my dear sister, I heard that you failed your breakthrough 3 days ago, and that your cultivation level greatly decreased again. An obviously sarcastic voice was heard. Lin Lan turned to look at the source of the voice. It was a beautiful purple-clothed lady with good facial features and a very enchanting figure. However, it was a shame, there was a hint of darkness and coldness in her eyes, which had a negative effect on her overall temperament. And this person was Lin Lan's half-sister, Lin Yu. Seeing Lin Yu, a hint of icy coldness appeared in Lin Lan's eyes, but she still did not speak. My good sister, hasn't your cultivation level fallen to the profound Yin Void realm? Gee, I reached the peak of the Yang Void realm when I was 18 years old. You were once praised as the top genius of the Lin family, so it's really pitiful to fall into such a situation, Lin Yu said casually, then lightly sighed. I think it would be better if you just stay in your room and wait for your marriage to that Luo Hai. He has a bad personality, but he's quite good in other respects, and his father is the great elder of the Luo family. If you marry him, it will be regarded as one last contribution to our Lin family. It's like recycling trash. You are so vicious. Whether you can marry someone in the future, I'm afraid, is still a problem. Lin Lan glanced at Lin Yu. Li Yu was stunned. A flicker of haze appeared in her eyes. Lin Lan's words were like rubbing salt in her wound. She was already nearly 30 years old and had loved many young talents. Unfortunately, none of them cared for her at all. Even if I never get married, I would still be better off than someone who is marrying Luo Hai. I heard that Luo Hai once had 3 wives and 9 concubines, but now only has 2 wives and 6 concubines. It's rumored that the missing wife and concubines were killed by him in bed. My good sister, you mustn't follow the footsteps of that 1 wife and those 3 concubines. Lin Yu smiled grimly and said no more. At that moment, at the very center of the grandstand, there was a man in a loose robe and a graceful woman. The loose-robed man, who looked gaunt, was the master of the Lin family, and also Lin Lan's father, Lin Xian. As for that graceful woman, she looked like Lin Yu to some extent. She seemed to be Lin Yu's mother, and also the first madam of the Lin family. Let's start, Lin Xian commanded. Lin Zong, who was standing at the front of the grandstand, nodded, and then began to host the hunt. The rules of the Lin family's hunt were very simple. The disciples would go to the Blue Cloud Mountains near their mansion, kill some spirit beasts, and bring back their bodies. The hunt would last for half a day, and the ranking would be decided based on the number of bodies and the strength of the beasts that were brought back. The top 3 would get corresponding rewards. The numerous disciples of the Lin family, who were taking part in the hunt, quickly set off towards the Blue Cloud Mountains. Before leaving, Lin Lan looked at Jian Wushuang, who was seated in the grandstand. "Remember what I said before?" Jian Wushuang spoke softly. Although his voice was too low, Lin Lan could still understand what he said by reading his lips. Lin Lan nodded heavily, then headed for the Blue Cloud Mountains. As for the numerous high-level experts of the Lin family, as well as Jian Wushuang, they quietly waited at the martial arts practice field. "I have been in secluded cultivation for a long time, so I didn't know there was a guest in our family." "You are?" Lin Xian noticed Jian Wushuang, who was a stranger, in the grandstand, so he couldn't help asking. "Swordsman," Jian Wushuang said in a cold voice, very indifferently. "Master, this Mr. Swordsman was invited by Miss Lan Er. Miss Lan Er met with danger when she was outside and Mr. Swordsman saved her," Lin Zong said on the side. "So that's how it is." Lin Xian raised his eyebrows and said politely, "Since you are a guest, we should entertain you well. If Mr. Swordsman needs anything, please do not hesitate to tell us." "Thanks." Jian Wushuang responded unenthusiastically. Lin Xian didn't say any more, but the first madam sitting next to him took a deep look at Jian Wushuang. Half a day passed quickly. "They are back." All the people in the grandstand were staring off into the distance, watching as the disciples of the Lin family rushed back through the air, quickly landing on the martial arts practice field, one after another. Most of these disciples were very tired. Obviously, they had done all they could in the past half day. Only Lin Lan, however, looked very relaxed. There was not even a trace of blood on her body, and she looked extremely calm. The spirit beasts in the Blue Cloud Mountains were originally captured by the elders of the clan. The weakest ones were at the initial Yang Void realm, but Lin Lan has fallen to the profound Yin Void realm. I'm afraid that she didn't even have a chance to capture a single spirit beast once she arrived at the mountain. Is that why she looks so relaxed? Many of the surrounding Lin family disciples secretly laughed at Lin Lan when they saw her. "Come up one by one and take out the spirit beasts you have killed, as well as their spiritual cores," Lin Zong said in the martial arts practice field, speaking in a grand fashion. Immediately the disciples of the Lin family came forward, one after another, and took out the dead bodies of the spirit beasts they had hunted in the Blue Cloud Mountains for the last half of a day. Some took out 2 or 3 bodies, while some had as many as 6 or 7 spirit beast bodies. The strength of their spirit beasts, however, were all very ordinary. There were no bodies that attracted any kind of special attention. At this moment, Lin Yu stepped forward and waved her hand. Immediately, 9 dead spirit beasts appeared, one after the other, in the martial arts practice field. Moreover, none of the dead bodies of the spirit beasts were common. Among them, 8 were at the exceptional Yang Void realm, while the remaining body was actually at the peak of the Yang Void realm. There was a commotion when these dead spirit beasts appeared on the martial arts practice field. Chapter 380, Who are you talking to? Chapter 380, Who are you talking to? 9 spirit beasts, and one of them was even at the peak of the Yang Void realm. Truly worthy of Miss Yue. Having killed so many spirit beasts in only half a day, Miss Yue is definitely impressive. Among the young disciples in Lin family, Miss Yue is definitely number 1. On the martial arts practice field, a large number of the Lin family disciples were speaking with admiration. The top experts of the Lin family were all smiling as they watched from the stands. "Yue made a good performance," Lin Xian said as he smiled faintly, while the first madam, who was beside him, revealed a large and proud smile. Lin Yu stood on the martial arts practice field with an arrogant expression on her face. She looked at Lin Lan, only to find that Lin Lan had not even glanced at her. "Next," Lin Zong said. Lin Lan slowly stepped forward. Everyone turned to face her, but most of them were looking at her with disdain. In their eyes, even the weakest spirit beasts in the Blue Cloud Mountains were in the initial Yang Void realm. Lin Lan, who was only in the profound Yin Void realm, had no chance to hunt any of them. It would be her good luck to have even managed to kill a single spirit beast. "Miss Lana, show me the spirit beasts you killed." Lin Zong looked at Lin Lan with a smile, waiting to see her embarrassment. Lin Lan, who had an indifferent expression on her face, did not even spare a glance at those around her. With a wave of her hand, Several dead spirit beasts immediately appeared on the ground of martial arts practice field. The huge dead spirit beasts that were piled up together formed a hill. Seeing the spirit beasts, Lin Zong, who was waiting to ridicule Lin Lan, was stunned. For a moment, everyone there was speechless. Altogether, Lin Lan had taken out 7 spirit beasts. It was not the number of the spirit beasts that made Lin Zong and other people speechless, but the aura released by these dead spirit beasts. Though dead, the beasts still gave off an extremely rich and violent aura. These 7 spirit beasts were all at the peak of the young void realm. Everyone on the martial arts practice field was shocked. Impossible. Lin Yu was the first one to shout out. Even for her, it was her limit to kill 8 spirit beasts of the exceptional young void realm and 1 at the peak of the young void realm, in only half a day. But Lin Lan killed 7 spirit beasts at the peak of the young void realm. Although Lin Yu had killed 2 more spirit beasts than Lin Yang, the quality of the spirit beasts was inferior. How could Lin Lan manage to do that in only half a day? It was so doubtful and incredible. All the top experts in the stand began to stir. Jian Wushuang remained indifferent, but he still nodded slightly at the sight of the spirit beasts that Lin Lan had killed. 3 days ago, he had removed the witch poison in Lin Lan's body and then given her 3 elixirs to restore her cultivation. Now Lin Lan had regained her original level of cultivation, which was the peak of the young void realm. Lin Lan also had good comprehension of the world origin and possessed many powerful sword skills. It was not difficult for her to kill 7 spirit beasts at the peak of the young void realm in only half a day. Jian Wushuang was sure that Lin Lan did not use her full strength. Otherwise, she could have killed far more spirit beasts. The people on the martial arts practice field fell into a tumult. Looking at the dead spirit beasts, piled up in the form of a hill, Lin Zong suddenly turned gloomy and said, "Miss Lana, you should know the rules of the hunt. You can only hunt using your own strength, and you cannot rely on external treasures. You must have killed these 7 spirit beasts with an external treasure, so your results are invalid." Hearing these words, the audience on the martial arts practice field burst into an uproar. Most of the Lin family disciples looked at Lin Lan with disdain. How could Lin Lan use an external treasure during the hunt? External treasure? After all, she was once the top genius of the family, so it wouldn't be surprising. She must have some external treasures, such as concealed weapons or some other treasures that can kill spirit beasts at the peak of the young void realm. Isn't Lin Lan a genius? How can she be so shameless? Their discussions about her were full of mockery and disdain. Lin Yu even sneered. Hearing that, Lin Lan's face turned serious. She turned to Lin Zong and said, "Elder Lin Zong, without any evidence, you claim that I have used external treasures to kill these spirit beasts. Isn't that ridiculous?" "Ridiculous? How is it ridiculous?" Lin Zong glanced at her scornfully and replied to her without any sign of respect. Before Lin Lan could refute him, Jian Wushuang spoke leisurely from the stand. "Elder Lin Zong, you definitely have sharp eyes. The instant Lin Lan had taken out the spirit beasts, you could tell that she killed them with some external treasure. I wonder whether you can tell me what kind of treasure Lin Lan used?" Jian Wushuang asked with a cold voice that reverberated throughout the martial arts practice field. Lin Zong frowned and looked at Jian Wushuang. "Mr. Swordsman, is there a problem?" "Problem? Of course," Jian Wushuang sneered and said, "so many people have shown you the spirit beasts they killed. Lin Yu also took out 9 spirit beasts. Why didn't you suspect that any of them killed the spirit beasts with external treasures?" Hearing that, Lin Zong's face fell. At this moment, the first madam, who was also in the stand, looked at Jian Wushuang and said coldly, "Mr. Swordsman, please remember your identity. You're only a guest of our family. You'd better sit there and watch quietly. Don't try to interfere with our internal affairs." "Is that so?" Jian Wushuang glanced at the first madam and Lin Xian, who sat silently beside her. Then, with a pondering smile on his face, he said, "You must be the first madam of the Lin family. I have heard that you're in charge of the Lin family. It seems that it's true. Mr. Swordsman, what is it that you are trying to say?" asked the first madam, with a streak of cold light flashing in her eyes. You told me to remember my identity, so I also have to remind you of something. Jian Wushuang sat there, tapping his fingers on the armchair. Then, in a freezing voice, he said, "First Madam, I will also remind you. Before you said that, you should have made sure to understand who you were talking to." The moment he finished speaking, a surge of killing intent, greater than anything they had ever seen before, began to radiate from him. His incredible killing intent soared into the sky and swept forward like a tsunami. Time and space seemed to be frozen for a moment, and the whole area became so deadly quiet that even a pin drop could be heard. It felt like the entire martial arts practice field was covered with a heavy frost. Chapter 381, He is Linlan's Master. Chapter 381, He is Linlan's Master. Silence. Deathly stillness. Disciples on the martial arts practice field, including those high-ranking experts in the stands, were all shocked with widened eyes. Such a powerful killing intent. The more Jian Wushuang comprehended slaughter origin, the more aggressive was his killing intent. Fully unleashing his killing intent, Jian Wushuang could even frighten experts in pinnacle of the Saint Realm, let alone those of the Lin family. Even Saint Realm experts of Lin family had never seen such a powerful killing intent. It was too powerful for them to fight. At the moment, Jian Wushuang's eyes turned to First Madam and his cold voice drummed heavily in her heart. Traveling around the world, I say what I want, do what I want. Can't I express my thoughts in the Lin family? First Madam, I am here now. Please repeat what you said just now. Jian Wushuang said in a forceful tone. He slowly spoke the words one by one. Each one finished with more powerful killing intent, which terrified First Madam more and more. When he finished saying that, the killing intent in him had risen to the peak. First Madam felt like she was on the brink of breakdown. Eyes wide opened and her graceful face reddened, she opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. It was as if she was choked. Horror. Covering all of her. She suffered in the horror, every second. However, Jian Wushuang was stern, cool and unmoved. Lin family, a mid-sized family in Iron Saber territory, had 8 Saint Realm experts. However, the strongest hadn't reached pinnacle of the Saint Realm yet but was just in stage 3 domain. Therefore, Jian Wushuang didn't take them to heart. Mr. Swordsman. Lin Xian said and looked at Jian Wushuang with fear. They thought Jian Wushuang was just an ordinary young Saint Realm expert. But he was not. He must be an old monster, definitely old, but retaining youthful looks in some way, roared Saint Realm experts of Lin family in their mind. They couldn't imagine how strong Jian Wushuang was. How could he be 20 years old? Mr. Swordsman, forgive us, it's just a misunderstanding. They had tried many ways to remove the witch poison from Linlan by asking for help from experts and alchemists, even experts of pinnacle of the Saint Realm. However, all failed. How could the witch poison be removed? Within 3 days, not only had the witch poison been removed, but her strength was fully restored. In a mysterious way. People in the stands, including Lin Xian and First Madam, turned to Jian Wushuang, who sat in a chair tapping his fingers on the chair with a light smile. They knew what Linlan was like 3 days ago. Today, however, Linlan regained her strength and called Swordsman Master. They also saw the terrible killing intent Jian Wushuang released just now. All these had proved it. It was him who removed the witch poison in Linlan's body and brought her strength back within 3 days. All this was due to Swordsman. Chapter 382, I don't want to marry him. Chapter 382, I don't want to marry him. Peak of Yang Void Realm. Lin Yu, who had always been holding her head high in front of Linlan, was stunned after seeing Linlan regain her full spiritual power. Ignoring Lin Yu's look of shock, Linlan went directly to Lin Yu and slapped her face fiercely. Lin Yu instinctively wanted to dodge, but the slap, containing world origin, was too fast and overwhelming. Thwack. A heavy slap turned Lin Yu's face red. Before Lin Yu reacted, Linlan slapped again. Thwack. Thwack. Another 2 slaps fell on her right cheek. 3 slaps in total. After that, Lin Yu's face turned red and swollen. Blood streamed out of her mouth and her blank eyes were widely opened. All were silent. After she finished her slaps, Lin Lan turned and left without a word. What a domineering demeanor. Lin family's disciples on the martial arts practice field gazed at her figure in shock. They knew, the peerless genius they admired 2 years ago had returned. Lin Lan walked to the stands and raised her head, looking at those in the stands. Taking a deep breath, Lin Lan said slowly, "Someone suggested or even decided to marry me to Luo Hai. I want to say, I refuse." A simple but clear answer made all of them awestruck. Lin Lan herself let out a long sigh of relief. When she knew her family had decided to marry her to Luo Hai, she felt desperate. Because she was weak and unimportant in the Lin family, no one would listen to her. But now, things had changed. She had regained her strength. The peerless genius had returned. Most importantly, she had an unfathomable and powerful master. She was more confident because of her master's support. In the stands, those high-ranking experts of Lin family were irritated because Lin Lan had defied their decision. But they dared not say anything. After all, Lin Lan's master, swordsman, was still there. Jian Wushuang, the person they feared, stood up slowly and looked at Lin Lan with a smile. He walked slowly down the stands and went to the courtyard where he lived. Lin Lan followed him. Soon they walked out of their sight. As soon as they left, the martial arts practice field was in an uproar. In a secret chamber of Lin family's mansion. "Kill her, I will kill her. Mother, kill the bitch, kill her." Lin Yu, whose face was still red and swollen, roared crazily. Being slapped 3 slaps in front of so many disciples and experts of Lin family, how could she not be furious? "Shut up." First Madam yelled at her. "I didn't expect she would gain the upper hand again. If I knew this, I would have killed her rather than poisoned her." First Madam's face was cold and venomous. Yes, it was First Madam who poisoned Lin Lan 2 years ago. But she didn't kill her out of some considerations. Because at that time, Lin Lan had a high status in Lin family and they all treated her as a treasure. Even top experts in Iron Saber territory said they wanted to take Lin Lan as their personal disciple. Besides, she had little control of the Lin family at that time and dared not kill her. That's why she waited and took action to kill her only after Lin Lan had lost her status in the Lin family. She didn't expect Jian Wushuang to save her. "Lin Zong, what do you think about swordsman?" First Madam looked at Lin Zong. Lin Zong stood and frowned. After a while, he said seriously, "Madam, swordsman is strong. Though he has not displayed it yet, his terrible killing intent proved that he is very strong. Besides, he removed the witch poison, which so many experts, including experts at pinnacle of the Saint Realm, can't. All these prove that he is powerful, at least no one in our family can deal with him." Lin Zong knew this. Lin family was just a mid-sized family in Iron Saber territory. The strongest expert in the Lin family was at Stage 3 domain. Anyone of pinnacle of the Saint Realm could do anything he wanted to the Lin family. Lin Zong estimated that Jian Wushuang was at least at pinnacle of the Saint Realm. "Bastard, who is he?" First Madam said with insidious and cold eyes. "Madam, honestly, we, even the whole Lin family, should not provoke swordsmen," Lin Zong said in a deep voice. First Madam's face fell, but she smiled coldly the next second. "Sure, swordsman is so strong that we cannot afford to provoke him. But someone else can." "Huh?" Lin Zong turned to First Madam. "Lin Lan said that she refused to marry Luo Hai in front of all of us, didn't she?" The 2 families had made a deal long ago. If Lin Lan refused it, do you think the playboy Luo Hai will leave the matter at that? A sneaky smile rose on First Madam's face. "Madam, you mean?" Lin Zong frowned and looked at her. "Send a message to Luo Hai immediately, but keep in mind, to Luo Hai rather than the Luo family," First Madam ordered. Lin Zong understood that and nodded heavily. Snaky coldness flashed in First Madam's eyes and a cold voice sounded. "Swordsman, we can't provoke you, but the Luo family can." Chapter 383, Visiting the Luo Family. Chapter 383, Visiting the Luo Family. Inside the courtyard, Jen Wushuang sat at a stone table, looking at Lin Lan, who was practicing sword arts. Each move she brandished moved the power of heaven and earth and contained world origin. "Have a break," Jen Wushuang suddenly said. "Master." Lin Lan stopped and looked over at Jen Wushuang. "You're quite good at sword principle but weak at offense," Jen Wushuang said. "I know a sword skill of world origin, not recorded in an origin manual. I will demonstrate this now. Look carefully." Jen Wushuang showed it right away. What he displayed was a superior second-grade sword technique, called Sword World. Jen Wushuang had been staying in the Sword Tower of Ancestors' Land for a whole year and meditated on a lot of sword skills, including some sword skills of world origin, among which Sword World was at the highest grade. In a moment, Jen Wushuang finished the first 3 movements of Sword World. He explained each move while performing, so as to help Jen Lan understand it more deeply. "That's it. Practice and study by yourself and come to me if you have any questions," Jen Wushuang said. "Yes." Lin Lan nodded. While at this moment, they heard some footsteps. Lei Yun hurriedly ran in. "Miss Lana, Mr. Swordsman." Lei Yun went in the courtyard and bowed, said, "Luo Hai, of Luo family, comes." "What?" Lin Lan was surprised. Jen Wushuang also frowned slightly. Lots of footsteps and other voices came from outside. "Master Luo Hai, it's a misunderstanding." "Misunderstanding? She has refused in public. What do you want to explain?" "Master Luo Hai, it's not what you think, we didn't mean to." I don't care. I want to know how dare she refuses the engagement." The voices were getting louder. Soon many people rushed into the courtyard. First came an unruly, insidious and supercilious man, followed by a purple-clothed elder who had already reached the Saint Realm. Lin families including Lin Xian and First Madam also walked in and then stood aside. Lin Xian looked embarrassed, while First Madam's face was cold with cruelty in her eyes. As soon as he rushed into the courtyard, Luo Hai was surprised to find that Lin Lan was beautiful. "I heard you were a beauty." "You really are. And you are also a genius. I like this," Luo Hai said with an evil smile. "What does Master Luo Hai come for?" Lin Lan asked coldly. He, of course I came for our engagement." Luo Hai said evilly. "Sorry, I have never promised to marry you," said Lin Lan. "I don't care. No one can refuse me. Since your family has promised, you have to marry me." Luo Hai's face fell and said, "Elder Wu, take the girl away immediately. I'm interested to see who dares to stop me." "Yes," nodded the purple-clothed elder beside Luo Hai. "Master Luo Hai, you can't." People of the Lin family were shocked. But before they stopped him, the purple-clothed elder had already taken action. "Young lady, you'd better go with us." The purple-clothed smiled coldly and said. Then he went to Lin Lan in a blink, reached out his shriveled hand and tried to catch Lin Lan. However, at the same time, Jen Wushuang moved too. Before the purple-clothed elder reached Lin Lan, a black-robed young man, wearing a long sword on his back, stood in the way. The cold young man waved his sleeve and said, "Scram," he shouted with a huge power blasting out of his sleeve. "What?" Feeling a huge impact force coming to him, the purple-clothed elder was attacked. Immediately he spat out blood and landed heavily on the wall. The wall was destroyed. All experts of Lin family felt a sudden throb in their heart after seeing that. Such an easy wave of a sleeve, seriously injuring a Saint Realm expert at 3rd stage domain. How terrifying was his strength. After beating back the purple-clothed elder, Jen Wushuang shot a cold sight and flashed before Luo Hai. Boom! An incredibly strong killing intent surrounded Luo Hai. His brain was in a buzz, eyes opened widely and standing still in shock, he wet his pants. A good-for-nothing. Jen Wushuang looked down at Luo Hai with disdain. Then Luo Hai heard a deep voice, "We did deal with the engagement in an improper way. Tomorrow, I will take my disciple to your mansion and apologize to Luo family. Now, you can go." After saying that, the killing intent on Jen Wushuang vanished and Luo Hai came to himself. "Go, let's go." Luo Hai had already been scared silly. He took the purple-clothed elder and staggered out of the Lin family at once. Witnessing what had happened, people of the Lin family couldn't help marveling at him. Master of Lin family, Lin Xian apologized. Mr. Swordsman, it's our fault to be thoughtless about Lana marriage. Sorry to bring you trouble. Trouble? No. I'm afraid we fell prey to a plot. Jian Wushuang's voice was cold. Fall prey to a plot? Lin Xian was confused. The news spread so quickly. It took Luo Hai only half a day to receive the news and arrived here. Jian Wushuang sneered and shot a cold look at First Madam. First Madam was alarmed. Before she opened her mouth to explain for herself, a wind blew over. Jian Wushuang went to her and squeezed her neck, pulling her up. Mr. Swordsman. All of them were startled. Hum. Jian Wushuang snorted. He threw First Madam on a stone table, which smashed the table at once. Lana, to kill her or not depends on you. Looking at First Madam lying on her deathbed, Lin Lan's eyes flashed coldness but more hesitation. She squatted, and after a wave of her hand, First Madam's dantian was shattered. You have persecuted me many times and made me suffer, thinking it was better to die than to live. Today, I will pay you back by destroying your dantian. Jian Wushuang didn't stop her. Tomorrow, I will take you to Luo family. Chapter 384, Breaking Off the Engagement. Chapter 384, Breaking Off the Engagement. Luo family, one of the 6 families in Iron Saber territory. Being a large family, Luo family possessed a much richer base and greater background compared to the Lin family. It had dozens of Saint Realm experts, even 3 in pinnacle of the Saint Realm. 2 figures were approaching the Luo family's mansion, a young man and a young beauty. Each wore a long sword on his and her back. Judging from their appearance, they were about the same age. People thought they were brother and sister at first sight, but never had imagined that they were master and disciple. Master, Luo family is one of the 6 families in Iron Saber territory. If we go inside and break off my engagement like this, it will bring shame to them. Lin Lan frowned slightly. I thought you didn't care. Jian Wushuang blinked his eyes. He shook his head, smiled and said, You have refused it in the presence of so many people, what's the difference? Lin Lan lowered her head. Let's go inside first. Soon Jian Wushuang and Lin Lan arrived at the void in front of the Luo family's mansion. Swordsman, coming to visit. Jian Wushuang's voice spread. Immediately dozens of figures flashed out in the void. Are you swordsman? The voice of an elder who had a cold face and looked like Luo Hai said. It was the great elder of Luo family, Luo Shan. Standing beside him was a middle-aged man with a solemn look, Luo family's master, Luo Hong. Another one who drew people's attention was a strapping man wearing a purple saber on his back, standing by Luo Hong's side. They knew why Jian Wushuang had come, so they didn't look happy. Dear gentlemen, I'm here to ask for a favor. My disciple is unwilling to marry Luo Hai. Therefore, can we break off the engagement? In compensation, here is an interspatial ring with lots of treasures and elixirs in it. Jian Wushuang gave it to them. Taking the interspatial ring, Luo Shan didn't even look at it. He said in a deep voice, So easy for you? So what do you want? Jian Wushuang said coldly. Simple. Luo Shan said, Where are the 3 protectors? Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures appeared before Jian Wushuang. 2 men and 1 woman, all reached the Saint Realm and the 3rd stage of domain. 1 step further, they would walk into pinnacle of the Saint Realm. Strength speaks, said Luo Shan. Swordsman, if you want to break off the engagement, defeat the 3 protectors first. Otherwise, we will not accept any compensation. Oh! Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and a smile appeared on his face. Please. Jian Wushuang calmly looked at the 3 protectors. They looked at each other, nodded secretly. The next moment, they moved towards Jian Wushuang. Boom! A purple flowing light flashed like a ghost and rushed towards Jian Wushuang's head directly. Too fast. A normal Saint Realm expert would not be able to react to it. Experts of Luo family stood in the void and calmly watched. The three protectors have been together for years and they cooperate very well. They can even battle an expert at pinnacle of the Saint realm. Therefore, it couldn't have been better to be able to test swordsman's strength with them. Luo Hong, Luo family's master, said with a smile. Being one large family, not only did the Luo family had deeper and stronger background, but it had a wiser and more far-sighted master than Lin family. Actually, after hearing the news yesterday, they had discussed how to test Jian Wushuang with the three protectors. If Jian Wushuang defeated them, it proved that Jian Wushuang's battle strength was in pinnacle of the Saint realm. And they would like to do him a favor, accepting the compensation peacefully. However, if he was defeated, they would make it difficult. He should understand that to refuse the engagement with Luo family, one of the 6 families, one would need to pay something. Thwack. A loud thump sounded. Jian Wushuang attacked the purple flowing light. Jian Wushuang fought back with a naked fist. After seeing this, many experts were shocked. But the strapping man standing beside Luo Hong was interested. Such a strong body. He gasped with admiration. After the thump, Jian Wushuang motivated his force of gale and thunderbolt. Then 3 residual shadows appeared in the void and beat the 3 protectors back. Clearly, Jian Wushuang was the winner. The 3 protectors got back on their feet and looked, aghast, at Jian Wushuang. In a flash, he defeated all 3. Too fast. Too easy. They were far weaker than Jian Wushuang. Experts of Luo family were stunned. Stage 2. Luo Hong, Luo family's master, said with a grim look on his face, "Swordsman, his battle strength should be in stage 2. Yes. The strapping man beside agreed with interest flashed in his eyes. Then Luo Hong said, "Your strength impressed us. I agree to break off the engagement." "Thank you," Jian Wushuang said with a smile and felt relieved. He thought they would tangle with Luo family and have a fierce fight with them. But it seemed Luo family was much wiser. But at this moment, whoosh, a figure suddenly showed up in front of Jian Wushuang. It was the strapping man wearing a saber on his back and standing beside Luo Hong. "Mr. Lei Dao, what do you?" People of Luo family were confused. Staring at Jian Wushuang, Lei Dao's battle intent slowly increased. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.